Let me tell you something. I'm not a violent man. I'm not a confrontational man. I was raised by my grandmother, Ms. Dorothy Jean Carter, in a 2-bedroom apartment in southeast Atlanta, where she taught me that your name is the only thing nobody can take from you. I carried that. Every single day of my 28 years on this earth, I carried that. Her name was Vanessa Smith. Tall, dark-skinned, laugh like a thunderstorm, the kind of woman who walks into a room and rearranges the air. We met at a community fundraiser in Decatur, Georgia, back in 2021. She was volunteering at the food table. I was helping set up speakers. Our hands touched reaching for the same box of napkins, and she laughed and said, "Guess we both got good timing." I should have paid attention to that word. Timing. Because timing, I would later learn, was everything in Vanessa's family, specifically in knowing when to strike. We dated 8 months before I agreed to move in. Her 2-bedroom place on Flat Shoals Road. Reasonable rent split. Comfortable routine. I was working my logistics coordinator job at a distribution center off I-285, pulling in steady money. Life felt like it was finally clicking into place. Then her family started coming around. Her mother, Brenda Smith, short, sharp-eyed woman who smelled like coconut oil and cigarettes. Her brother, Deshaun, 24, no job, permanent scowl. Her cousin Trina, the instigator, the one who whispered into every situation like smoke under a door. I felt it before I understood it. That cold, invisible current in the room whenever I walked in. Like they were waiting. I just didn't know what for. The first red flag came 3 weeks after I moved in. Brenda showed up unannounced on a Tuesday evening carrying 2 garbage bags full of her own clothes. "I'm staying a few nights," she said. Not a question. Not even directed at me, really, just announced to the room like I was furniture. Vanessa looked at me with apologetic eyes. "Just a few days, Henry. She's having problems with her landlord." I'm Henry, by the way. Henry Dillard. And I remember standing in that kitchen watching Brenda unpack her bags into our hallway closet and thinking, this doesn't feel like a few days. It was 3 weeks. 3 weeks of Brenda criticizing how I cooked, commenting on my work schedule, asking Vanessa in loud whispers why she was with a man who ain't doing nothing special. I was paying half the rent, half the utilities, stocking the refrigerator. But to Brenda, I was barely adequate. Then Deshaun started coming by every weekend. He and his boys would take over the living room, PlayStation, loud music, empty bottles. I'd come home from a 10-hour shift and couldn't even sit on my own couch. One Saturday I said, calmly, "Hey, Deshaun, can you maybe keep it down a little? I got an early shift tomorrow." He looked at me, looked at his boys, then laughed like I'd told a joke. "This ain't really your house though, is it, Henry?" Dead silence. I looked at Vanessa. She looked at the floor. That was the moment I realized something had been discussed about me, in rooms I wasn't in. Decisions had been made about my place in this household. About my place in Vanessa's life. And nobody had told me yet. I want you to understand something before this next part. I loved Vanessa. Genuinely, deeply, the kind of love where you see a future so clearly it feels like a memory. I saw us buying a house in Stone Mountain. I saw kids. I saw Sunday dinners and vacation photos and growing old. That love is exactly what they used against me. I started noticing small things disappearing. $20 from my wallet. Then $40. A bottle of cologne my grandmother gave me before she passed. I didn't say anything at first because I was questioning myself. Maybe I misplaced it, maybe I miscounted. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own reality before you even know it has a name. Then my PlayStation went missing. I bought that console with overtime money. $380. It sat on the entertainment center and then one day it simply wasn't there anymore. "Henry, I haven't seen it," Vanessa said, not meeting my eyes. "Vanessa, nobody else lives here except your mama right now. Are you accusing my mother?" Her voice dropped, cold and fast like a blade. And there it was. The mechanism. The family protection circuit that I had no idea existed. The moment I raised a legitimate concern about something stolen from my own home, I became the aggressor. I became the problem. I went to Deshawn's apartment the following weekend. I didn't go to fight. I went to talk. But when I got there, Deshawn's friend Keelan, big guy, neck tattoos, no patience, opened the door and said, "You got a lot of nerve coming here." My PlayStation was sitting right there on Deshawn's entertainment center. I saw it with my own eyes. And that's when the rage started building. I didn't explode. I want you to understand that clearly. Every part of me wanted to, but I didn't. I walked back to my car, sat behind the wheel for 11 minutes. I remember because I watched the clock, and I breathed. Ms. Dorothy Jean Carter hadn't raised a man who let his emotions make his decisions. But I did start documenting. I bought a small notebook from CVS, dates, times, items. I started photographing my belongings, serial numbers, receipts I'd saved in my email. I moved my most important things into my car, my laptop, my financial documents, my grandmother's jewelry box that I kept for sentimental reasons. It felt paranoid. It felt necessary. Vanessa noticed the shift in me. "You've been different lately," she said one night. We were in bed, lights off, her voice small in the dark. "I've been thinking," I said. "About what?" "About whether this situation is sustainable." She went quiet for a long time. Then, "My family comes with me, Henry. You knew that. Your family stealing from me wasn't part of the agreement." She sat up. "Nobody stole from you." "Vanessa, I saw my PlayStation." "Deshawn said he borrowed it." "That's different." "Borrowed. Without asking. Without telling me. And suddenly I'm the unreasonable one for having a problem with it." I lay there in the dark and thought about my grandmother saying, "Baby, the first time somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Don't negotiate with it. Believe it." I believed it now. I started quietly looking for a new apartment the very next morning. I had no idea that I wouldn't make it out of that house before everything detonated. It was a Thursday. October. The kind of Atlanta evening where the heat finally breaks and the air smells like rain coming. I came home from work at 6:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone when I pulled into the parking lot and saw 3 unfamiliar cars outside the building. One was Brenda's burgundy Camry. One was Deshawn's Charger. The third I didn't recognize, black Impala, out-of-state plates. Something in my stomach shifted. I walked upstairs. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped into a living room full of people I barely knew, and the energy was wrong immediately. Conversations stopped, eyes cut toward me, someone actually laughed under their breath. Vanessa was standing near the kitchen door. Her arms were crossed. She wouldn't look at me directly. "What's going on?" I said. Brenda stepped forward. She had a glass of something brown in her hand and confidence that didn't belong to her. "Henry, we need to talk about you moving out." I blinked. "Excuse me. This is my daughter's apartment. And we don't think this arrangement is working anymore. Your daughter and I." "Vanessa," Brenda said. And Vanessa, my Vanessa, the woman I loved, the woman I'd been building a future with, looked at the floor and said, "Maybe it's best, Henry." The room felt like it tilted. Trina, the cousin, was smirking from the couch. Deshawn had his arms folded like he'd won something. The man from the black Impala, I still didn't know his name yet, sat in my chair like he'd always owned it. "You've got until Sunday," Brenda said. I had until Sunday. In my home. I told them I'd be out by Sunday. Calmly. Professionally. I was already mentally planning the logistics. Call my cousin Derek, rent a van, move my things out clean. I was not going to give them a scene. I was not going to be the angry black man they clearly wanted me to be so they could justify everything they'd already decided. Friday I worked my full shift. Friday night I packed boxes. Methodically. Quietly. Vanessa slept in the bedroom with the door closed. I slept, barely, on the couch. Saturday morning I woke up at 7 a.m. and walked to the second bedroom where I'd been storing my overflow belongings. The door was open. The room was empty. Not just cleared out, wrecked. My boxes had been torn open. My clothes were scattered, some of them cut. Not torn, cut, deliberately, with scissors. My record collection, 47 vinyls I'd spent years building, including a Marvin Gaye original I'd paid $200 for, was smashed. Physically stomped on. The pieces were still on the floor like a graveyard. My grandmother's wooden keepsake box, the one I'd moved to my car, was somehow back inside, open, and emptied. Someone had gone into my car. My hands were shaking. I walked into the living room and Brenda, Deshawn, and Trina were sitting there, eating breakfast, watching TV. Like nothing had happened. What did you do? My voice was barely above a whisper. Brenda looked up. You needed motivation to move faster. Trina laughed. Actually laughed. Something inside me crystallized. Hard and cold and absolutely clear. I picked up my phone. I walked outside. And I dialed 911. I need to report vandalism and theft at my residence. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes. Officer T. Haynes and Officer R. Dominguez. I wrote their badge numbers in my CVS notebook the second they walked through the door. I'd been documenting for weeks. I was ready. I showed them the destroyed room, the cut clothing, the shattered records. I showed them photos on my phone of my belongings before, time-stamped, dated. I showed them the keepsake box, emptied. I showed them the scratches on my car door where someone had forced entry. Brenda immediately started talking over me. This is a domestic dispute. He's just upset because Vanessa asked him to leave. Officer Haynes held up one hand. I need you to let me do my job. This is my daughter's apartment. She went quiet. The first time I'd ever seen Brenda Smith go quiet. Officer Dominguez pulled me aside. You got receipts for the items? Serial numbers? Yes, sir. Email receipts, photos with serial numbers, a handwritten log of missing items going back 6 weeks. He raised his eyebrows. You've been documenting. I had a feeling I'd need to. He nodded slowly, wrote something in his pad. Smart. Vanessa stood near the hallway the entire time, arms wrapped around herself, watching. At one point our eyes met and I saw something flicker in hers. Guilt, maybe, or something close to it. But she said nothing. She let it happen. That silence would cost her. The officers took statements. They photographed the damage. Before they left, Officer Haynes handed me a report number and said, "Keep that safe. You're going to want it." I already knew what I was going to do next. I made 3 phone calls that night. I need to back up. Because the man in the black Impala, I learned his name that same Saturday night, and what I found out changed the entire shape of this story. His name was Cortez Smith. Vanessa's ex. Not just an ex, the ex her family had never stopped hoping she'd go back to. Brenda's favorite. Deshawn's running partner. The real reason they wanted me gone. My cousin Derek, who I'd called to help me move, happened to know Cortez from the west side. When I described him, Derek went quiet on the phone. Then, Henry. That man is under federal investigation for check fraud and wire transfer schemes. Has been for 8 months. I sat with that for a moment. And he's in my apartment, I said. Was he involved in your stuff getting stolen? I thought about the 6 weeks of missing cash. The PlayStation. The way Deshawn had access to things he shouldn't. Cortez had connections. Cortez had motive. He wanted Vanessa back, and I was the obstacle. And Brenda, desperate for her daughter to return to her preferred choice, had become his accomplice whether she fully realized it or not. I made my second phone call of the night to an attorney. His name was Gerald Jones, a civil litigator I'd found through my company's employee legal assistance program. I'd called him 2 weeks earlier just to ask questions. Now I had a real case. Send me everything, Gerald said. Every photo, every receipt, every log entry. Send it tonight. My third call was to the federal tip line Derek gave me. About Cortez. I was done being the man in the room who absorbed damage quietly. It was time for the damage to find its way home. Sunday morning. I was supposed to be gone. Instead, I was sitting in Gerald Jones's office. Yes, on a Sunday, because Gerald was that kind of attorney and I was that kind of client, going through everything I had. Gerald spread my documentation across his desk. Photos. Receipts. The police report number. My 6-week log. Email backups. He read through it slowly, deliberately, the way a man reads something he knows as teeth. You were meticulous, he said. My grandmother taught me that. He looked up. This is solid, Henry. Destruction of personal property. Unlawful entry into your vehicle. 6 weeks of documented theft adding up to, he calculated, roughly $1,400 conservatively. What can we actually do? Civil suit, absolutely. But more immediately, he tapped the log entry about missing cash. If Cortez Smith is involved and is already under federal investigation, your tip could accelerate a warrant. And if Brenda or Deshawn received or moved any of those stolen funds, they become accessories. Deshawn doesn't have a job. Doesn't matter. Brenda does. She works county administration, correct? He'd already looked her up. Yes. County employees flagged in criminal investigations face immediate administrative review. She could be suspended pending investigation within 48 hours of a formal complaint. I leaned back in my chair. The gears of justice move slowly, everybody knows that. But sometimes, when the documentation is right and the timing is right and someone has been underestimating you long enough, they move fast. Gerald filed 3 separate documents before noon that Sunday. I moved my remaining belongings out of Flat Shoals Road that afternoon with Derek. I didn't speak to Vanessa. I didn't need to. The clock was already running. Monday morning, 41 hours after I filed that police report, my phone rang. It was Gerald. The federal investigation into Cortez Smith expanded overnight. Your tip was the final thread they needed. They connected him to accounts that were routing money through Deshawn's name. I stood up from my desk at work. Say that again. Deshawn Smith has been operating as a nominee account holder for Cortez's scheme. He's been receiving and transferring fraudulent funds for at least 4 months. His accounts, and Cortez's, were frozen this morning pending a federal warrant. The air left my lungs slowly. And Brenda. The formal complaint about county employee involvement in a criminal matter was submitted to her department's HR and compliance office at 8 a.m. She's been placed on administrative leave pending investigation as of an hour ago. I sat back down. 41 hours. That's all it took when you document everything, when you move with precision instead of emotion, when you let the system work because you've given it no choice but to work. But here's the twist I didn't expect, the call I got after Gerald's. It was Vanessa. She was crying. Not performing crying, not manipulative crying, the kind of crying that sounds like something breaking for real. Henry, my mama just called me. She lost her job. Deshawn got arrested. What did you do? My voice was steady. I filed a police report. Vanessa. The same night your family destroyed everything I owned. You didn't have to go that far. They went into my car, Vanessa. They cut my clothes. They smashed my grandmother's things. Silence. I loved you, she whispered. I know, I said. That's the part that hurts. I hung up. I thought it was over. I really did. I was staying at Derek's place, sleeping on a real mattress for the first time in weeks, eating food nobody had touched before I got to it. Peace felt strange after so long without it. Then Trina called me. I almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, curiosity, the journalist in me that never fully sleeps, made me pick up. Henry. Her voice had none of that smirk in it. She sounded tired. Scared, even. I need to tell you something. I'm listening. She took a breath. Cortez promised Brenda he'd help her with her mortgage if she got Vanessa back with him. That's why all of this started. The plan was to make your life uncomfortable enough that you'd leave voluntarily. Take your things, get in your head, make you look unstable to Vanessa. I gripped the phone tighter. And Vanessa? Long pause. She didn't know all of it. Brenda kept her in the dark mostly. But she knew enough, Henry. She knew enough and she chose to stay quiet. There it was. The thing I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to confirm. Vanessa wasn't innocent. She was complicit through silence, which in situations like these amounts to the same thing. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because Deshawn is my cousin too and is sitting in county lockup because of Cortez. And Cortez is out on bail acting like nothing happened. And I'm not going down for any of this. Trina was saving herself. I understood that. Self-preservation isn't loyalty. But her statement, recorded, because Georgia is a one-party consent state and I'd pressed record before I answered, was about to become my attorney's favorite document. The case just got bigger. I sent Gerald the recording that same night. He listened to it twice, then called me back and said something I'll never forget. Henry, you didn't just build a case. You built a story that a jury will remember for the rest of their lives. Trina's recorded confession changed everything. It established premeditation. It wasn't just vandalism born out of a heated moment. It was a coordinated scheme involving Brenda, Deshawn, and Cortez, with a financial motive. Gerald amended the civil suit to include conspiracy to commit property damage, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and tortious interference with my right to peaceful habitation. Cortez's federal case now included witness testimony about using a residential target, me, as cover for his financial operations. His lawyer was already trying to negotiate. Brenda's administrative leave became termination when the county reviewed her communications and found emails discussing getting Henry out sent from her work account. Her own digital footprint ended her career. Deshawn took a plea deal. 60 days, restitution, probation. And Cortez faced 18 months minimum on the federal wire fraud charges, with additional civil exposure from Gerald's suit. Gerald recovered $1,460 in documented stolen property value, plus pain and suffering, plus attorney fees. The final settlement, which Brenda's homeowner's insurance was forced to participate in because the damage occurred at a property she had familial control over, was just over $11,000. $11,000. From the family that called me nothing special. From the brother who said, "This ain't really your house." From the mother who thought I'd just quietly pack my things and disappear. I sat in Gerald's office when the settlement came through and I thought of Ms. Dorothy Jean Carter. I thought of her voice saying, "Your name is the only thing nobody can take from you." They tried. They failed. And every single one of them paid. It's been 7 months since that night on Flat Shoals Road. I'm in my own apartment now, 1 bedroom, Kirkwood neighborhood, 12 minutes from my job, mine and only mine. The key on my keyring is the best thing I own. I don't talk to Vanessa. She reached out once more, 3 months after everything settled, asking if we could meet and talk through things. I thought about it for exactly 1 day. Then I texted back, "I wish you well, Vanessa. But what you allowed to happen to me in that house told me everything I needed to know. I don't negotiate with that." She didn't respond. That was fine. Brenda lost her county job and spent 4 months fighting a wrongful termination claim she didn't win. Deshawn served his 60 days and is reportedly working at a warehouse in Morrow. Cortez is awaiting sentencing. Trina, ironically, is the only one who came out relatively intact, because she told the truth at the right moment. There's a lesson in that somewhere. And me. I'm not bitter. That's the thing people always get wrong about justice. They think if you fight back hard enough, you come out angry. I came out clear. I know exactly who I am. I know what I can endure. I know the difference between a person who loves you and a person who needs you convenient. My grandmother used to say, "God don't like ugly, but he also don't respond to whining." You want justice? Document. Pray. Move smart. I documented. I prayed. I moved smart. And everything that was built against me collapsed under its own weight. Thanks for watching. Share this with someone who needs to hear it.